Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this video is titled My Self-Care Journey, and basically I'm just going to go through some of the past year of my life. If you've been here a while, you know that I haven't uploaded for a year, and I guess some people are wondering where I've been. So this video is just a story about that year. And for the first time, I figured out how to use the chapters on YouTube. So I'm gonna divide it into chapters so you can click onto the parts where you want to hear about if you want to hear about anything. But basically the executive summary of this video is I'm going to talk about why I left YouTube for a year, why I'm back, and kind of some stuff I did with my career and school in the past years. I'm going to start with why I've been gone from YouTube for a year. The main reason, I guess, is anxiety. It's really funny because I think I have made videos about my anxiety on this channel before and I've talked about it, so it's not like something that's completely brand new. But I guess something happened last year that made me really actually want to take a break from YouTube. Basically what happened is that a month after I uploaded my last video, which was January 2021, I got really sick and I had to go to the hospital for a few days. Because what had happened prior to me getting sick was since September 2020 till January or February, I was doing a lot of stuff. So one of the things is because I was a third-year law student, I had to apply for vacation schemes, which is basically like internships for jobs for when you graduate. That took up a lot of my time, and basically it was sort of non-stop just applying, and then immediately there were the interviews. And I was also like interning in the winter, like during the Christmas break, so I basically had no break all the time up to February when I got sick. And when I got sick, it was like psychosomatic basically, and that's when I realized that, like, oh well, I hadn't thought I had been carrying this much stress inside of me, but I think I had, and it made me really sick. There's no clear correlation between that and deciding to like leave YouTube, but I think a part of me was thinking that basically I've been doing YouTube since I was 13 years old, so 7 years ago, and a lot of those videos are like private now, so you can't see them, but I have been uploading like basically every week since I was 13, and then I kind of dwindled the number of videos down when I got into uni, but still I feel like I was still updating everyone periodically on what I was doing, like where I was with my school and uni life. And it's not actually stressful in the sense that I think about it all the time, but in the grand scheme of things it was stressful in the sense that I felt like I always was performing. Like I not only had to perform in my real life here because I was applying for jobs, I was doing a lot of work, and actually for me I also changed schools that time, so I went to Hong Kong U and left UCL, so it was a lot of change. But adding to that the extra layer of performing to an audience like on YouTube, I realized that was creating a lot of stress in me. For example, I felt like whether or not I got a vac scheme or got a training contract, I felt like I would have to answer to so many people. I have to go on YouTube and tell people what happened, and I would probably have to share my experience. I think that thought just really drove me crazy, and I kind of didn't know how to detach from that because I had been doing this since I was 13. Like, it was just a lot, so I decided that I'd rather not do anything on YouTube. I don't want to appear in social media space until I had kind of taken care of myself. So yeah, that brings me to the second part, which is what I would characterize my last year as is probably self-care, because I think taking time off and not focusing on what people were thinking of me was, in retrospect, self-care, even though during the time I was just trying to like get through life, I guess. So I'm just gonna share about some of the ways I kind of took care of myself and some of the new discoveries I had over the last year. But as a general rule, I think like I really realized that self-care is a very self-dependent thing. Like it's very different for every single person, and I feel like this year I've had to learn a lot about myself in order to deal with myself. Like I can't just follow some generic tips like drink more water, like exercise more, because I did all those things and it didn't help. Again, this part is not really me giving tips because I know that's what I do a lot on this channel, but this is just my sharing. So onto the few things that really helped me. First of all, it was creating a good sensory environment. This year I focused a lot on learning more about myself, and I think the personality types were really helpful for that, MBTI. And basically for my type, the inferior function, the worst function, is something called SE, which is sensing your exterior world. For me, that kind of manifests, I realize, in that I do get quite overwhelmed by like just being out too much, being around so many people. For me to fix that and kind of like improve that part of myself, I realized that, oh, I can actually turn this for my use and create a good sensory environment for myself to live in so that I don't feel so stressed all the time. So I guess that's where all the like classic self-care tips comes from, which is like stuff like lighting candles, having night lights, or having good interesting scents. I think that actually is helpful for me. And so yeah, actually last year I did a lot of just really basic stuff like getting candles and like drinking herbal flowery tea before bed, dimming the lights so I can be quiet and be in the dark. All of those were really helpful for me in just calming myself. The second thing that really helped was distancing myself from technology. Removing myself from YouTube was one of that, but I think the other thing is also being more conscious about social media as in Instagram and stuff. And I do have some really drastic measures which I love, and maybe someone who hears this is going to be offended, but basically one of the things I loved to do is just mute people who I didn't really care about, or just like even if they created even a tiny bit of negative emotion in me, I just felt like it wasn't worth it and I would mute them. Doing that to declutter my feed and kind of control what sort of world I was in while I was on social media was really helpful. And like I said, a big part of what made me stressed was a lot of comparison, because I feel like I always had to put myself in the public eye and compare up to everyone else. So for me, like handling my social media use was actually so important, and I feel like it's something I'll do for the rest of my life. And the final self-care thing that really helped me last year was trying new things. This is, I guess, also very specific to my personality, because I am a very achievement driven person. And I realized that all throughout my life, even though I have very diverse hobbies, a lot of those hobbies are very achievement based. So to give you a few examples, this YouTube channel has genuinely been a hobby for me. Like I didn't start it to get followers, I just did it because it was fun. But soon, like if you get more successful, then the success starts being the fun. For me, YouTube was one of those things where I just felt like the joy was out of it, which is also why I paused. On the flip side, I think this year discovering new things as hobbies and new things to do that are not achievement based has been really healing for me. One of those things for me was writing, and actually writing has been something that's been a hobby of mine since I was a little kid. And actually, if you have been on this channel since I was 13, then you probably know me from one of the things I wrote when I was younger, because those books got really viral at some point of my life. And I remember like back then writing also turned from something that was just fun to something that was showing, oh, how talented I am, and it really drove me. So I think this year I've been trying to do more writing as well to rediscover my interest, but just force myself to not post it and force myself to like not even think about the aspect of people reading it, but more of writing for myself as an expression, because I think detaching a hobby from success is so important if you want to make it really a hobby and really something that calms you and helps you take care of yourself. The other new thing I tried was bouldering, and this is completely random. It's just that there's a new Olympic sport this year, which is sport climbing, and I watched it on TV randomly during my vac scheme, and then I thought, oh my gosh, that's really cool. But this has also been a really weird new hobby for me because it isn't competitive at all. I used to do competitive running. I was really enjoying running, but that was also competitive. So like everything I was doing in my life was competitive. And so, I mean, bouldering is just fun, and I'm really glad I started doing it. But yeah, I basically just found that trying new things that are not achievement based has been really helpful for me in healing. Okay, and that brings me to the last part of this video, which is telling you guys about my vac schemes and sort of what that process was like within the framework of this self-care journey. So for those of you who are not law students, basically vac schemes are internships where you do them, and if you do well, you get a training contract at the end, which is basically a job. So it's basically a very pivotal moment in every law student's life. It's the point where you go from a student to a lawyer. I'm glad to be talking about this here because before I had thought like maybe after my vac schemes I would do vac scheme experience videos and like tips, which is what I always did because this channel has all been about like academic tips. But I mean, it's just nice to talk about it in this context, in the self-care context, because for me, those vac schemes were definitely more than just achieving what I wanted to achieve, but it was definitely a huge part of my year, just in terms of the whole journey I had been on. So during my summer, I did go on 2 vac schemes at 2 different firms. And for me, the process was also very much a growth process. In my first month at my first internship, I was pretty stressed. It was a huge shock for me, very long hours at work. And most of all, it's the very constant pressure of both like performing technically in your work, but also performing socially, because you have to meet all these other students, talk to your supervisor, talk to partners all the time in order to like make them remember you. So it was just a very, very intense season for me. I did enjoy my first vac scheme a lot, but the thing was, it was just exhausting for me. I guess the first time trying this, I was not prepared for how much toil it would be, and I just got really, really tired. At the end of that first vac scheme, I remember thinking like, okay, on the objective level, I did pretty well. Everyone else looking at me would think she just made it through one vac scheme, that's great. But for me, I was thinking more in terms of, I know I did well, but I was so exhausted and so like scared during the process that I don't personally look back on that season as like that nice, because I feel like it's not worth it to get something you want if you are stressed throughout the entire process. Basically, I had a lot of reflection between my first and my second vac scheme, and I remember thinking like, okay, you're gonna do another vac scheme now, but please just take care of yourself and use a more positive mindset as you go into it. And as law students, we talk about resilience a lot, but that's definitely been a very key thing for me during my vac scheme process. I guess the main thing I did was just to rearrange my mindset so that I was excited to go to work and excited to show them what I could do, rather than always thinking that this is such high stakes and this is so pivotal, and just all these negative what if I fail thoughts. Just tell them to quiet down and just enjoy the process. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed my second vac scheme, and it was so funny to me because it wasn't because I did especially well in my second one compared to my first, but just that I had a different mindset. And I guess throughout the whole year of like understanding myself more, learning to take care of myself, and learning that I'm such an achievement driven person that I have to stop that, taking that with me to my vac scheme changed everything for me. And it really, I mean, I feel like I would have been so much worse off going into the vac schemes if I hadn't like quit YouTube, quit thinking such toxic thoughts to myself, and done all these like life changes. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful for the journey I've been on this year. I think the vac schemes are quite like symbolic of my whole year, because I could kind of put everything I learned into 2 months of work. Alright, so I guess some of you have the question of like, what's next for this channel? And honestly, I don't really know. I think I'm back at least, so I am done with my hiatus and I won't disappear, but I guess I also won't post as frequently as I did before. The other thing actually is I'm kind of planning to switch up this channel so it's not so academic and goal oriented, because I feel like that's what I've always done. I will probably still make those videos, like I can still make a video on my vaccine experience, but I don't want my channel to be just about these law stuff. That's kind of boring. So thank you so much for watching until here if you have. I'm really happy to be back. I'm sorry I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Please let me know in the comments how you've been. Okay, bye!